Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Seeing Through Doors and Around Corners. My name is Jeff Maruschek. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect for the AWS DoD Air Force team. And with me is AWS Executive Strategist Tom Soderstrom. Tom, say hi.
Hi. Did I do that right?
Yeah, you did. We're off to a great start.
There you go.
So in case you're seeing our two faces for the first time, we kicked this, what I'm calling this is a series now, because I think the goal is me and Tom want to do this every year around the reInvent time. But last year, we did a little segment live at reInvent, and the link is down below for you to watch it. And my goal was to, because 2023, we were inundated with generative AI, it came almost out of nowhere and it kind of took over everything IT. So I wanted to know what's coming next. And let's keep talking about what's the next big thing. And I figured the best person to do that and to help us talk through this is an AWS former NASA employee, executive strategist who goes out and his job is to talk to executives globally, because right now, Tom is in, where are you, Tom?
Today I'm in Stockholm, Sweden.
Stockholm, yeah. So
Yeah.
we wanted to do this live at reInvent, but because of scheduling conflicts, we're going to do a little pre-record. But I wanted to talk through summarize what we talked about last year, see what has happened, what 2024 kind of resulted in, because we were kind of judging what's 2024 going to be the year of, et cetera, et cetera. So let's review that. And then I'm going to let Tom kind of take the lead to say, what do we see 2025,
There you go.
2026, et cetera,
That's always
et cetera.
the danger of predicting, especially if you predict short term, you're there to be accountable. So let's see what we came up with.
Yeah, and I think we made a slight mistake last year. We were thinking 2025 and beyond, but we kind of started talking about 2024. But let's talk about what we talked about and what we saw in 2024. So you mentioned augmented reality, virtual reality, and you talked about your experience using different tools, different pieces of hardware
Mhm.
for that. And that was really interesting. But when we were talking about sleeper technologies, you'd mentioned Metaverse, and I didn't put
Mhm.
two and two together right then and there while we were talking. But Metaverse, you said, is coming back. It plays a role with AR, VR. What are you seeing with Metaverse and AR, VR?
Sure. So at JPL, we actually built Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Second Life, which was an early metaverse. And we built conference rooms in and had the avatars try it out. And that was the most successful thing we did in the end, because we could actually then build the physical conference rooms. So where we're seeing now the metaverse moving to, it's not a place where avatars party and sit around a conference room table. Because we learned during the pandemic, you can do that from Chime, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, you name it. We've gotten pretty good at that. Instead, the metaverse, polyverse, omniverse, whatever you call it, is a place that's very difficult to visit. It's dangerous, it's far away. And one of the best examples I can think of here is a company called Hexagon, with working with AWS, created Hexagon Digital Reality, where they can essentially drive a truck through the city and create a metaverse of the city. And now you can start populating it with people, with instruments, etc., very, very fast. So it's more about things than it's about people and people visiting those things. And I think it's an exciting future. And as we talk about other things with like digital twins, etc., the metaverse, call it whatever you want, verse, is going to be very instrumental to what we do, because it lets you experience it. Now, we at NASA, we drove rovers on Mars using virtual and augmented reality much, much faster. The people learn in hours what used to take months to drive, because you had the human experience in a very difficult to reach place.
I
That's
mean,
where it's going.
anyone who's seen The Matrix knows I know kung fu. I
There you
mean,
go.
you're explaining it. And what's interesting is, as I look back at our session last year, I love how everything we talked about comes together. So you just mentioned, seeing things, and we also, a big topic we mentioned for coming of age or new inspiring technologies of Internet of Things, and we also said Internet of Anything. And we did see a big boom, I think. And again, we're not here to talk about consumer electronics or consumer level technology. We're the layer behind that, the stuff that fuels consumer electronics, which is kind of, I imagine the executives you speak to, they are
Yeah.
looking at those use cases, and we are as AWS trying to enable them with these higher level technologies. But let's talk about Internet of Things. Just like for the Internet of Medical Things, we're seeing glucose monitoring being a big thing now, pregnancy monitoring, fertility tracking, even really IoT stuff, connected CPAP machines and like smart CPAP machines. What are you seeing there?
I love the conversation of it's no longer how did you sleep. If you ask that, you said, oh, between noon or between midnight and 2 a.m. I had a great deep sleep. We're becoming the quantified self, where everything is about numbers and it helps people sleep. It measures just about everything. What I'm really excited about is the medical side. So, for instance, medical implants and medical devices in the body. I mean, Neuralink, I think, got FDA approval, if I remember correctly. And so now you can literally teach the blind how to see. How do you do that? The nerve is cut, but you can now wirelessly transmit, understanding where in the brain that impulse is, to the idea of vision.
Mhm.
And people who are mute can speak because of devices. So I think this Internet of Anything is going to impact us a lot in medical devices. And in the ones that are really the forerunners are the cars. You think about self-driving cars. I took one in San Francisco the other day,
Oh,
Waymo, and it was really fun. It works perfectly. It even saw a cat on the street.
oh, nice.
And that's a giant Internet of Things AI
Yeah.
machine.
Yeah, and last year I had mentioned, we were talking when we started talking about Internet of Things. I said it's the most influential technology that no one knows about. And what I
Yeah,
meant by no one knowing about is not that, because we almost all use IoT. That's the funny thing. Like
that's right.
everyone who has a gas line to their house or electric line to their house is using IoT. They just don't know that it's called that. Now, with generative AI, most people have heard that term generative AI, whereas almost no one has heard the term Internet of Things. However, it's arguably even more influential. So that's kind of what I meant about that. But let's take it a
And
step further. Or go
hey,
ahead.
one thing, Jeff, I'm going to wake up everybody who's not awake right now.
All right.
I'm going to say one of the biggest IoT things is Alexa. And all of a sudden, Alexa started talking in everybody's house.
Yep, mine's listening right back
Yep.
here. Thanks,
But
Tom.
yeah, you're welcome. Home
Great.
automation is really a big deal with IoT, and you can make it worse. I hear Alexa.
All right. Sorry about that. That's your fault, Tom.
I know, and I love it. Companies like Electrolux is building in IoT into the dishwashers, into the washing machines, where people can now train their machines to use cooler water for washing. And so we're helping the environment and saving them money. I
Well,
think this is a nice use case of where it's going.
my refrigerator, I'd never thought of how many times a month on average I open the door.
Yeah.
Now I can tell that. And that's training myself to like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, I could really knock on the glass and turn the light on. I don't really need to open the door. So yeah, that makes sense. Let's take it a step further. One thing we didn't mention last year, we probably should have, was 5G and connectivity. And then,
Yeah.
because I would have mentioned 5G, and then you would have then mentioned
6G.
6G. Yeah. So the cool thing about 5G is that people hear that and think, oh, my phone's going to be faster. I can stream more games and everything. But it's so much more than that.
Oh, yeah.
Can you go into
Sure.
how 5G is impacting not only cell phones, but industry?
So when you look at the future, one of the things, who are going to be the most important people here? especially in the IT industry. And network engineers are going to be some of those. And companies that can make sense out of all this new networking. So what do you have in the IoT world? You have 5G, you have MQTT, you have Wi-Fi, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really about the network, being able to connect to things with very low latency, literally connect to things, and fast. So when 6G comes around, one of the big trends is productive at the edge and being able to calculate at the edge. And 6G really is about that. So we start thinking about 6G, and 2030 timeframe is when it'll probably be, we'll see the early versions of it. But it's, in the meantime, 5G is making amazing differences. So the network is if you're a network engineer listening to this, feel good. You have a bright future.
Yeah. Well, my point of kind of summarizing last year was to really paint a picture and show how everything we talked about is ingrained with each other. 5G is going to enable the Internet of Everything. 5G is going to enable the metaverse and AR, VR. Local, private 5G networks are going to enable that uh, those technologies. And you know what? We didn't talk. We mentioned quantum, but we didn't talk about quantum security. But you know what? Let's move on. Let's talk about quantum security maybe next time. But I want to give you, Tom, the chance to go ahead and. Now we're a year later, so we're a third of the way through an IT decade. If we started, you taught me that last year. A third of a way through an IT decade from when we
and you
started.
remember.
Yeah. So what are we looking at now?
Good.
You take the lead here and tell us.
Sure. And by the way, you probably remember because of your memory implant. Is that why?
Maybe.
Boy, that's one I would use, wouldn't I?
Yeah.
So one of the things we're seeing here is some major mega trends. So these are not just for next year, they're for the next 8 years or so. But if there's one thing that I think is important for everybody listening, is how do you make sense out of all this stuff? There's a very simple recipe, 6 words. Think big, start small, scale fast. So think big is kind of brainstorm what could possibly happen. Can you imagine in the beginning of the pandemic if we had said, this pandemic thing looks like it's going to last not just a month, like I thought, but 2 years? We would have known to invest in home automation, food delivery, video conferencing. So thinking big is really about that. So, and then starting small is about experimenting in those things. And scaling fast is picking the things that matter and then doubling down. And if you build it in the cloud, a cloud native, they scale up and down automatically. So it's a really exciting future to get started with. So if we look at the major trends here, we are thinking about some trends that's going to help you, more IT trends, that will then help you deal with the large mega business trends. So 4 of each.
All right.
The first one is
Jenny.
Generative AI and cloud. Duh.
And let me interject here. It seemed like 2023 was people realizing generative AI, and 2024 seemed to be the year of everyone learning really how to use it, how to make it work for them, not just as a fun thing to play with. It was really realizing how this can help our lives improve, and that goes into learning what retrieval augmented generation is, adding your domain specific information into a model, or doing pre-training, or even simple. And the term simple prompt engineering is like an oxymoron, because you think it's just in the voice of, but no, prompt engineering is really big and can be a large amount of effort. So I feel like 2024 everyone was really starting to learn about generative AI. What do you see going forward?
So when we talk to customers, and I'm an enterprise strategist, so I talk to executive customers across the world, as my peers do. And we hear now that the key priorities for customers is speed. It's speed to compliance, speed to profitability, speed to change. And generative AI can help with all that. We've seen things, and it used to be, what is generative AI? Now it's, how do I use it? How much does it cost?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I like about AWS, one of many, it's about that last part. How much does it cost? Well, it depends on the model you use. And so we're seeing people experimenting with different models. And you don't even have to do that figuring out by yourself anymore. There is model experimentation. They're built in. And they can be done in minutes, what used to take months. So experiment with it. That's like the number one.
Mm-hmm.
As an example, generative AI is not just a technology revolution. It's really a machine learning evolution, and it's a journey of discovery. And we're seeing that discovery going faster and faster. What happens is it's the use case that matter.
Yeah.
And so for the readers or the listeners, I would say go out and look at the AWS use case, generative AI use case explorer and Party Rock, and get hands-on. We see the future leaders being technology teenagers, because you go to your teenagers when you have, at least my generation does, when you have a problem with your technology. These future leaders need to be hands-on. And so we're seeing this generative AI. The reason it goes together with cloud is really no other place to do it. It is just use of such massive amounts of data. It's going to get enhanced reasoning. It's going to have empathy. It's, chatbot. Well, that digital assistant is real. And you will get the physical assistant, the implants, where AI is measuring the whole thing and keeping it harmonious for you.
Yeah, my wife recently had a knee replacement, and recovery is the
Yeah.
hardest part of that. And I remember, I forget what movie or story I saw it in, where they had an implant that did that physical therapy uh,
Yeah.
with with servos and everything, and it was I could see how that could play a big part. So, Tom, we are kind of at time. We could talk for hours on this. What's the one thing you want to leave our viewers with looking forward
Sure.
into 25 and 26?
I think when you look at generative AI and cloud and data, and the importance of data is another one. Another one is digital twins. And when you put all that together, focus on building think big digital twins, because it will help you generate synthetic data, like the Amazon One Hand is 99.9999% accurate, because it tested using synthetic data. So you don't have to have all the data. You can generate the data to test with. The big business trends that we see is global climate change will change everything. So be sustainable and assume that the factories will move from an unsafe location to a safer location. Geopolitical changes will make sure that you have a backup for just about everything. Supply chain, internet, and that's where Kuiper will play a big role. And then the rise of your new big trend. The space economy, which of course I'm very favorable to, the new space economy is going from about $400 billion to $1.8 trillion in just 6 years, because it matters. So to the viewers out here, what is your big trend? Then talk about it, think big, then experiment with these technologies, especially generative AI and digital twins, and productive at the edge, all of the IoT devices, which will have machine learning built in. And then start small, and then the ones that work scale fast. And you will have that first over advantage. And it'll be cheap and easy, because you can always try something else because it's in the cloud.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things you said last year was fall in love with the problem, not the technology, because that's what's going to drive the desire to solve things. Tom, thank you very much. I apologize. We could have gone another 30 minutes, but let's do this again next year and see what 2025 was, and look around corners and through some doors yet again next year. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you so much. This was a pleasure.